The city of Zorian 5 glittered like a jewel against the night sky. Towers of glass and steel rose into the air, covered with neon streams of alien script and digital banners that shifted every second. Above, fleets of drones hovered in silence, recording everything from the skies and sending live feeds across half the galaxy. Tonight was no ordinary night. Tonight, a wedding would be remembered far beyond the city walls. Inside the Crystal Spire, the most expensive event hall in the sector, the wealthy and the powerful had gathered. Alien nobles, human officials, and corporate leaders mingled beneath chandeliers that hung like frozen waterfalls. Every table overflowed with food from 100 different worlds, crimson fruits that dripped like blood, silver bread that glowed faintly, wines that sparked when poured. The guests wore robes, gowns, and uniforms stitched with jewels and coded fabrics that shimmered like starlight. The bride, Elara Dren, stood at the far end of the hall in a gown so white it reflected the blue fire of the chandeliers. Once, she had been known as Earth's brightest star, a woman of ambition who had risen from nothing to become one of the most influential human diplomats in the sector. Tonight, however, she was no longer a symbol of Earth's strength. Tonight she was marrying Lord Kryn of the Velith Empire, one of the richest and most feared alien nobles alive. His empire controlled 5 worlds, 3 moons, and a fleet powerful enough to bring Earth to its knees if it wished. The guests cheered as Lord Kryn entered in a ceremonial robe of silver scales. His reptilian eyes scanned the hall with cold satisfaction. To him, this marriage was not love, but conquest. Taking Elara was taking Earth itself, piece by piece, but then the murmurs began. The guests' voices dropped into whispers. Heads turned toward the entrance. A man in a black suit, tall and broad-shouldered, stepped inside. His face was sharp, handsome, but there was no smile there. It was Marcus Vale. Every camera drone swerved instantly toward him. Every newsfeed across the system crackled with new commentary. Marcus Vale, Earth's billionaire, its rogue investor, the man who had built entire colonies on the Outer Rim with his own money. And more than that, Elara Dren's former fiancé. The man she had left behind for Kryn. The hall buzzed with energy. This was scandal. This was live drama no stage could ever match. But Marcus wasn't alone. Beside him walked a woman in a simple dark gown. Her hair was tied back without jewelry, her steps measured and calm. She carried no ornament, no wealth on her person. At first, many assumed she was a bodyguard, though she held no weapon. Others guessed she was a servant. Soon whispers cut across the hall like knives. "Is that his maid?" One alien hissed in disbelief. "He dares bring a servant here?" Another gasped. "Is this his revenge against Elara?" Someone else whispered, half in excitement, half in fear. Marcus ignored the voices. He walked straight down the aisle with the woman at his side. His expression never changed, but Elara saw her. At first, the bride's face held the usual poise of diplomacy, the calm mask of a woman who knew she was being watched by millions across the stars. But as soon as her eyes touched the maid, her breath caught. Her skin turned pale. The calm mask cracked. She knew her. Elara's hands trembled against her bouquet of silver flowers. The memory hit her like a knife to the heart. She tried to step back, but Lord Kryn's clawed hand held her firmly in place. Marcus's maid, Celine. She was no ordinary woman. Elara had seen her once, long ago, in a place she had sworn to forget. A place hidden beneath the surface of Earth, where machines and humans blended, where forbidden projects whispered in the shadows. Elara had been young then, curious, foolish. She had glimpsed a figure in the dark with glowing eyes before security drove her away. That memory had haunted her nights, though she had buried it deep, and now that figure stood here. Celine's face showed nothing. No smile, no anger, no emotion at all. She walked calmly, as though she belonged to no world, as though the whispers and laughter of the guests were nothing more than empty noise. Marcus leaned slightly toward her, and though his lips barely moved, the cameras caught it. He whispered something. Celine gave the smallest nod. The drones above circled them like vultures. The broadcast spread faster than fire. Across colonies, across planets, millions of eyes now watched Marcus Vale walk into his ex-fiancée's wedding with a maid who carried herself like a queen in disguise. Elara's heart pounded. She felt her new husband stiffen beside her. Even Lord Kryn, who rarely showed fear, blinked his reptilian eyes with unease. The air seemed to grow heavier. The guests, sensing the strange tension, began to murmur again. "Why is the bride afraid? She looked like she's seen a ghost. Who is this maid?" The words rippled through the hall, each one sharpening the suspense. Elara tried to speak to maintain the ceremony, but her voice caught in her throat. Finally, the words escaped in a trembling whisper. "Marcus." Why did you bring her here?" The hall froze. Every sound died. Even the drones seemed to pause in the air. Marcus's eyes never left hers. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The calm in his tone was sharper than any shout. "Because," he said, "you already know who she is." A chill ran through the hall. The guests shifted nervously, their eyes darting between Elara, Marcus, and the maid. Celine's gaze finally lifted. Her dark eyes locked on Elara's trembling form. For just a moment, the lights of the hall reflected in them, glowing faintly like stars. Elara's knees nearly gave way. Memories she had buried surged back, rumors of secret human projects, whispers of weapons hidden beneath skin, beings who were neither fully human nor machine. She had thought they were myths. She had hoped they were myths, but Celine was real, and now she was here. The silence stretched on, heavy as stone. Suspense filled every breath. Guests leaned forward, hungry for the next moment, desperate to know who was Celine really. And why was the bride so afraid? The Crystal Spire's grand hall did not return to normal after Marcus's words. The silence stretched, thick and uneasy, as if every guest was holding their breath. Cameras floated in the air, recording every detail, every flicker of fear on the bride's face. The broadcast streams buzzed with live commentary. Marcus Vale stood tall, calm as a mountain. At his side, Celine remained motionless. She neither lowered her eyes nor spoke. Yet her presence filled the air more strongly than all the wealth and power in the room. The guests shifted nervously in their seats. Their whispers returned, sharper now, like blades cutting through the hall. Why did Elara look so pale? She knows the maid, doesn't she? Impossible. She's just a servant. Just a servant. But none of them could convince themselves. Celine's gaze moved slowly across the room. She studied the alien nobles, the armored guards, the shimmering drones above. Her eyes lingered on the glowing pillars along the walls, the power sources that kept the Crystal Spire alive. It was as though she were not a guest but a hunter, examining her cage, measuring the exits. One of Kryn's guards, a tall reptilian with silver armor, stepped forward. His claws clinked against the handle of his plasma blade. "Remove her," he hissed, his voice rough like stone. "This servant has no place here." Marcus's eyes flickered toward him, but before he could speak, something strange happened. The guard's weapon sparked in his hand. A sudden surge of static ran along its blade, shorting out the power core. With a pop, the weapon went dark, leaving only smoke rising from the hilt. The guests gasped. The guard stumbled back, shaking his arm as though bitten by lightning. Celine had not moved. She simply stood there, calm, her hands folded at her side. But her eyes, those dark, unblinking eyes, had been on him when it happened. Another guard drew his rifle. The barrel hummed with charge, but before he could aim, the lights above flickered. For a moment, the chandeliers dimmed. The power in the entire hall seemed to falter, as if something invisible had reached into its veins and squeezed. Gasps echoed. Drones buzzed nervously, their feeds glitching for a second before stabilizing again. The music stopped, the orchestra staring wide-eyed at the bride, the groom, and the strange woman beside Marcus Vale. Lord Kryn's scales glimmered under the pale light. He narrowed his reptilian eyes and leaned close to Elara, his voice low but sharp. "Who is she?" he demanded. "Why do you tremble?" Elara swallowed hard. Her lips moved, but no words came out. She could not answer. Marcus's voice cut through the silence, steady, calm, terrifying in its certainty. "You see it already," he said. "The weapons fail near her. The power bends. And still you pretend she's just a maid." The guests recoiled, their whispers turning frantic now. "What is she? Is she even human? Why would Marcus bring her here?" Celine finally moved. Her head tilted slightly, as though listening to a sound no one else could hear. Then she stepped forward, just one step, but it was enough to silence the crowd again. The air around her seemed to hum faintly, like distant thunder before a storm. One of the alien nobles clutched his chest, sweat dripping from his brow. "I feel ill," he whispered, stumbling back into his chair. Others shifted uncomfortably, as though something unseen pressed against them. Celine's eyes lifted toward the ceiling, where the drones still hovered. Their lenses glowed red as they streamed everything to the galaxy. For just a moment, the feed stuttered, billions watching across the stars. The silence that followed Marcus's words was heavier than any sound. The great hall of the Crystal Spire, filled with nobles and dignitaries, seemed to shrink as every eye fixed on Selene. She did not flinch. She did not smile. She simply stood, calm and unbothered, as if the entire galaxy were not staring at her. The whispers grew again, this time more urgent, like a storm rolling over the crowd. "Who is she?" "She cannot be just a maid. The bride is terrified. Look at her face." Elara Dren's lips trembled as she tried to steady herself. She had mastered the art of diplomacy, had faced alien emperors and human politicians without blinking. But here, in front of her former fiancé and his silent companion, her mask cracked again. Lord Kryn noticed it. His scaled brow furrowed. He tightened his grip on her arm, claws digging into the fabric of her gown. "Explain this," he growled, his voice low but sharp, "before you shame me in front of the sector." Elara's throat tightened. She couldn't explain, not without confessing the truth she had buried. She shook her head faintly, unable to speak. Marcus stepped forward, uninvited, unafraid. He walked as though he owned the place, as though the wedding of his ex-fiancée to one of the galaxy's most powerful nobles was nothing more than a stage prepared for him. The guards shifted uneasily. Some raised weapons, but the memory of the earlier malfunction still lingered. None wanted to be the next to find their rifles dead in their hands. Celine's gaze swept across them. She said nothing, but her silence was louder than any threat. The air seemed to thicken with her presence. One of the alien nobles near the front table fanned himself nervously, his skin turning a pale shade of green. "I cannot breathe," he muttered. Others looked equally unsettled, though none dared leave their seats. This was history in the making, and no one wanted to miss it. The officiant, a tall being of crystalline form, cleared his throat and tried to continue. We are gathered here," but Elara cut him off, her voice trembling. "Stop!" She stared at Marcus with wide eyes. "Why are you here?" "What do you want?" Marcus tilted his head slightly, his expression unreadable. "What do I want?" He looked toward Selene. "I want the truth to be seen." "And she is the truth," gasps rippled through the hall. The drones above focused tighter, broadcasting Marcus's words to billions. Elara felt her knees weaken. She wanted to shout, to deny it, but her lips refused. The memory was too strong. The glowing eyes she had once seen in a secret Earth facility. The hushed rumors of Project Selene, a weapon disguised as a woman. Lord Kryn's eyes narrowed. His scales shone under the dimming light as he studied Selene with suspicion. "A truth?" he said slowly. "She is nothing. A servant. A shadow." But even as he spoke, his voice lacked conviction. His instincts warned him that this woman was something far more dangerous. Selene finally moved. Just one step forward. Her simple gown brushed against the marble floor, and her eyes locked with Elara's once more. "Do not pretend you do not remember me," Selene said. Her voice was quiet, almost gentle, yet it carried to every corner of the hall. There was something in it that vibrated through the air, a metallic resonance beneath the human tone. "You saw me once. You knew what I was, and still you chose this path." Elara's bouquet slipped from her hands. Silver petals scattered across the floor like broken stars. The guests leaned forward, their curiosity turning to fear. "What path? What is she talking about? Is the bride hiding something?" Lord Kryn's jaw clenched. "Enough of this." He raised his clawed hand, signaling his guards. "Remove them now." But before the guards could move, the chandeliers above flickered again. The power lines running along the hall's walls glowed faintly, then dimmed. A hum filled the air, low and steady, like the breath of a machine awakening. Selene's eyes glowed faintly in answer. Every guest froze. Weapons in the guards' hands powered down with a cascade of sparks. Security drones hovering at the edges of the hall dropped to the ground one by one, their lenses dark. The entire hall seemed to bow to Selene's presence. Marcus smiled faintly, for the first time that night. "You see, even your machines know to obey her." Elara staggered back, clutching Lord Kryn's arm. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Marcus, what have you done?" But Marcus didn't answer. Celine did. Her voice echoed again, layered with that strange metallic undertone. "What has been done cannot be undone, and tonight your lies end." The hall held its breath. Guests trembled in silence. The wedding, meant to be a union of power and wealth, had become something else entirely, something darker, something no one could yet understand. The chandeliers above the crystal spire hummed faintly, their light unsteady, as if struggling against some invisible force. The entire hall had gone still. Guests leaned forward in their seats, terrified but unable to look away. Every camera drone across the galaxy zoomed in on the strange maid, whose presence seemed to bend the very air around her. Celine. Her name carried no weight for most of the galaxy. To them she was nothing, a servant at the side of Marcus Vale. Yet the way she stood, still, calm, unshaken, made the powerful feel powerless. Ilara's heart hammered in her chest. She wanted to deny it, to scream, but the truth she had hidden for years stood right in front of her. The thing she had once glimpsed in the depths of Earth's secret facilities was here, at her wedding, watching her with unblinking eyes. Marcus's voice cut through the thick silence. "You see her now, Ilara. You recognize what you tried to bury. Tell them who she is." Ilara shook her head violently, her eyes darting to the alien nobles, to the guests, to Lord Kryn. If she spoke, her world would shatter. Lord Kryn's scales rippled with unease. His claws tightened around Ilara's arm, nearly piercing her skin. "Speak, woman," he snarled. "Who is this?" Ilara's lips parted, but no words came. She looked into Celine's dark, steady gaze, and for the first time in years she felt fear deep in her bones. Celine stepped forward. Her soft voice carried across the room like a blade gliding on glass. "You thought you could hide from me, Ilara. You thought if you gave yourself to the Valeth Empire, Earth would be spared." She turned her head slowly toward the alien lord. "But you made a deal with predators. You bartered away your people's freedom." The guests erupted into whispers. Their shock spread like fire. A treaty? Betrayal? None had expected the wedding to be more than politics, yet now the air crackled with accusations too great to ignore. Lord Kryn's eyes narrowed. His tail lashed once against the marble floor. "You dare accuse my bride in my house?" His voice rose into a roar. "You are no one. A servant." But his words felt hollow. Even he could feel the truth pressing down on him. Marcus's voice came next, calm and unyielding. "She is no servant." "She was never a servant. She is the reason you should fear us." Celine's eyes glimmered faintly with unnatural light. Her next words chilled the hall. "I am the shadow you hoped was only rumor. I am the experiment you tried to erase. I am humanity's last weapon." The hall shook, not from her voice, but from the reaction it stirred. Gasps echoed from human and alien throats alike. The chandeliers above sparked briefly, then steadied again. The guards surged forward, unwilling to wait longer. But as their boots struck the marble, their rifles collapsed in their hands. Metal bent like clay, circuits died in a blink. They dropped their weapons, their claws trembling as they stared at their useless gear. Celine did not move. She had not even raised her hand. Yet everything mechanical near her seemed to wilt and die. The alien nobles scrambled to their feet. Some cried out. Some pushed back their chairs, ready to flee. Marcus raised his voice just enough to cut through the noise. "Do you understand now? This wedding was never a union. It was a surrender. Ilara chose to hand Earth to Kryn's empire." His gaze hardened. "But Earth has its own answer." Celine's eyes lifted toward the ceiling. The camera drones buzzed in confusion. Their lenses glowed red, then flickered. Across the galaxy, billions of viewers suddenly saw the feed distort. A figure appeared in the static, a silhouette of fire and steel, a human shape surrounded by storm. Then the picture cleared. But the image remained burned into the minds of all who had seen it. Celine's voice filled the silence again. "Tonight you will not enslave Earth. Tonight you will witness why humanity will never kneel." Ilara staggered backward, pulling against Kryn's grip. Her voice broke at last, filled with desperation. "Marcus, please, you don't understand what she is." But Marcus only looked at her with cold certainty. "No, Ilara, it is you who never understood." The guests cried out as the entire hall trembled. Somewhere deep in the walls, hidden machinery stirred. Lights flickered and flared. The glass towers outside shimmered, as if the city itself was answering Celine's presence. Panic spread. The wedding had become a battlefield in waiting, and at the center of it all, Selene stood, calm and unshaken, her eyes glowing brighter now, her voice carrying the promise of a storm that could change the galaxy forever. The air inside the wedding hall turned heavy, as if invisible hands pressed down on every chest. The music had stopped long ago, replaced by whispers, sharp gasps, and the sound of drones circling overhead, recording every second of the chaos. Selene stood tall, her simple gown glowing faintly under the neon chandeliers, her presence commanding more fear than the entire security team. Clara clutched her bouquet so hard that petals broke away and fell to the ground like drops of blood. Marcus Vale didn't move. His jaw was tight, his eyes sharp, as though he knew this moment had been coming all along. "Why are you here?" Ilara's voice cracked, carrying across the silent hall. It wasn't the question of a bride asking about a servant. It was the question of someone facing a nightmare from her past. Selene tilted her head slightly, her calmness unnerving. "I told you once," she said softly, "that running from your choices would not save you. And now here you are, dressed in white. But beneath it—" Her eyes flicked to Ilara's trembling hands. "The same guilt still stains you." The alien diplomat, towering and sleek with silver skin, stepped forward. His voice vibrated through the room like a deep instrument. "Enough of this. You are a maid, nothing more. Leave now or you will be removed." Selene's lips curled, not quite a smile. Then she raised her hand. At first, nothing seemed to happen. But then, one of the hovering drones sparked, let out a screeching noise, and collapsed to the ground in a burst of fire. Gasps erupted from the guests. Guards moved, weapons sliding free. "Stop!" Marcus barked, his voice like steel. Everyone froze, caught between fear of the billionaire and the strange energy radiating from Selene. She lowered her hand, but the silence that followed was louder than any weapon. The fallen drone smoked on the floor, its lens shattered. Every other drone adjusted their lenses, locking onto Selene, broadcasting her image to the entire city. Ilara's eyes widened with panic. No, not here. Not in front of them. Selene stepped closer, each footstep echoing against the marble floor. Her presence pulled the air tighter, every guest's breath ragged, as though the city itself was holding its breath. "You thought you could hide me in plain sight," Selene said, her voice almost a whisper, but heard by all. "A servant in Marcus's house, invisible to the world. But you knew, Ilara. You knew I would come." The alien groom spread his arms, his diplomats rising from the crowd, hands glowing with strange technology. "We will not allow this disruption. This ceremony binds two powers, two worlds, two lies." Selene cut him off. "You think she told you everything? You think she is yours?" Ilara's face had gone white. She tried to speak, but her throat closed. Her entire body trembled, not from shame, but from fear. The guests began to murmur louder, their whispers now sharp, almost panicked. Some reached for exits. Others stayed, hungry for the spectacle. Marcus finally spoke, his voice low but heavy with weight. "Selene, tell them. Show them why you're here." Selene's gaze flicked to Marcus, and for the first time that night her calm cracked. A shadow of sorrow passed her eyes. Then she turned back to Ilara. "Shall I tell them what you did, Ilara?" Selene asked. "Shall I show them what I am?" Ilara shook her head violently. "No, please, not here." Selene lifted her arm again. This time light gathered around her skin. Not fire, not electricity, but something older, stranger. Symbols glowed faintly across her arms, like a language from beyond the stars. Gasps filled the hall. Even the alien groom staggered back a step, his composure broken. "She's not human," one guest whispered. "She's a weapon," another hissed. Selene's eyes glowed faintly now, reflecting the terrified bride before her. "I was made for one purpose, and you know what it is?" Ilara dropped her bouquet, flowers scattering across the marble floor. She sank to her knees, her voice breaking. "I thought I buried it. I thought you were gone." Selene stepped closer, her energy humming louder, the walls themselves trembling under the weight of her power. "You should have known better," Selene said, her voice a knife. "Who cannot bury a weapon designed to awaken?" The crowd erupted into chaos. Guests rushed for doors. Drones scrambled for stable footage. Guards leveled their weapons but hesitated, terrified of what a single shot might trigger. Marcus stood calm, his hands folded behind his back, watching as though every step of this had been part of a plan. The alien groom snarled. Stepping in front of Elara, his voice thundered. "If you are what I think you are, then you are forbidden here. Leave now, or this will become war." Selene paused. The glowing lines along her arms flickered. She looked past him to Elara, who was trembling on the floor, her wedding dress torn, her face pale as death. "This was never about war," Selene whispered. "This is about truth." And with that, her form shimmered, revealing hints of what lay beneath the maid's disguise: metal, light, and something not of this world. The hall shook. The guests screamed. And Elara, broken and pale, covered her face as the truth she had feared most finally stood exposed before the world. The wedding hall had become a storm of panic and awe. Guests pushed against the grand doors, only to find them sealed shut by the building's automated defenses. Drones spun wildly, beaming the broadcast across the neon city. Their feeds now replayed on massive glass towers outside. Millions watched as the quiet maid became something far more dangerous. Selene's disguise flickered again, her human skin struggling to hold form as streaks of silver light rippled beneath. Her voice rang clear, unshaken, even as her body glowed with an unnatural energy. "You want to know the truth? Then listen. My name is not Selene. It never was. I was created as Project Seraph." Gasps filled the hall. Marcus closed his eyes briefly, as if he had expected these words yet dreaded their weight. Elara sobbed, shaking her head. "Don't! Please don't tell them." But Selene pressed forward. "Project Seraph, the last surviving construct from the war that was erased from history. A war your families buried to keep power. I was designed to be the perfect guardian, the final weapon. And Elara, she was the one who betrayed me." The alien groom's face hardened. His silver features shifted, pulsing with faint energy. "This cannot be true," he growled. "That war was only myth," Marcus's voice cut through. "Not myth, cover-up, and now the proof stands in front of you." Selene turned, her glowing eyes locking on Elara. "You left me for dead in the ruins of the Arcadia vault. You sealed the chamber, believing no one would know what you'd done. But Marcus found me. He rebuilt me, hid me in plain sight, while you smiled, planned your perfect life, and sold yourself to another world." The crowd murmured, their whispers sharp like blades. Betrayal, lies, conspiracy. The words hissed through the wedding hall. Elara fell forward, clutching the floor as though the marble itself might save her. "I had no choice," she screamed. "They told me if I didn't destroy you, the galaxy would burn. I did it to protect us." Selene's voice lowered, trembling with restrained fury. "Protect us? Or protect your position? You were given power, Elara, and you chose ambition over loyalty. You left me in the dark, thinking you had ended me. But you never understood. I was not meant to die." The alien groom spread his hands, his diplomats raising glowing devices. "Then you are dangerous. You are unstable. This ceremony was meant to bind two civilizations, and now you threaten to unravel them both." Selene turned slowly, the light inside her intensifying. "No, I am not here to start war. I am here to finish it. The truth cannot stay hidden any longer." Her words carried beyond the hall, through the drone's lenses, into every screen across the city. Crowds outside gasped as Selene's form shimmered, revealing flashes of her true self. Metallic wings folded inside her body, a core of light pulsing like a star. Inscriptions of lost languages running along her arms. Marcus finally stepped forward, his calm presence cutting through the chaos. "Let them see," he said, his voice steady. "Let the world know who betrayed whom. And let them judge for themselves." The alien groom bristled, fury burning in his silver eyes. "You will destroy everything." Selene looked at him, unblinking. "No. Elara already did." The weight of the words fell like a hammer. Elara collapsed fully, tears streaming down her face, her wedding dress stained with broken petals and dust. The guests no longer whispered. They stared, spellbound, as Selene stood radiant and terrifying in the center of the hall, the truth burning through every shadow. Outside, the city erupted in noise, sirens, shouts, and cheers all at once. The secret was out. The maid was no maid. The wedding was no wedding. It was the stage for a revelation that would shake two worlds. And as the lights flickered above, Marcus whispered, The wedding hall trembled as Celine's true form glowed brighter, her body a fusion of human grace and alien design. The last veil of illusion had fallen, and now every guest, every drone, and every citizen watching knew the truth. The maid was a weapon, and the bride was her betrayer. Ilara lay collapsed on the marble floor, her white gown torn, eyes red from tears. The alien groom stood protectively in front of her, his silver frame radiating energy, ready to strike. His diplomats fanned out, their devices humming with deadly light. Marcus Vale didn't flinch. He stepped closer to Celine, his voice calm despite the storm around him. "It's time. They've seen enough. The lie has ended." Celine's glowing wings began to unfold, metallic feathers shimmering with ancient power. Gasps filled the room as the hall shook under the energy she released. "I was created to protect," she said, her voice resonant, echoing through every broadcast. "But you turned me into a secret, a weapon to be hidden. No longer. Today I choose my own purpose." The alien groom's fury boiled over. With a sharp command, his diplomats fired beams of searing light. The attack streaked across the hall like lightning, but Selene moved faster. Her wings snapped outward, forming a radiant shield that absorbed the energy. The beams ricocheted, exploding chandeliers and shattering marble pillars. Guests screamed, diving for cover. "Stand down!" Marcus shouted, but no one listened. Chaos had taken control. Celine stepped forward, her shield dissolving into a blazing spear of light. She raised it high, and the glow filled the hall like a newborn sun. The alien groom charged, his silver body elongating into a war form. But Celine struck first. Her spear sliced the air, stopping inches from his chest. She didn't kill him. She froze him. The entire room gasped. "This is not your war," Celine declared. Her spear dissolved, leaving only her glowing eyes. "This is hers." She turned to Ilara, who trembled on the ground. Ilara's voice cracked. "I tried to save myself. I didn't care what it cost. I betrayed you because I was afraid of what you were." Celine knelt, her light dimming just enough to reveal the human face beneath. "I was never meant to destroy, but you made me believe I was nothing more than a weapon." Her voice softened, almost sad. "Today I prove you wrong." Celine reached out, touching Ilara's trembling hand. For a moment the hall went silent. Then the glow around Celine softened into a warm radiance, no longer threatening but protective. The alien groom, still frozen in shock, lowered his stance. The diplomats dropped their weapons. Even the drones steadied their lenses, capturing the moment that would become history. Marcus spoke last, his voice like a closing seal. "The truth has been revealed. The world now knows of Project Seraph. They will fear her, yes, but they will also see her choice. And that choice is freedom." Celine rose, her wings folding back into her body until only the maid remained. Yet no one would ever see her as a servant again. She stood not as weapon, not as victim, but as a being who had chosen her own destiny. The wedding was ruined. The alliance shattered. But something greater had been born. Outside, the neon city roared with 1,000 voices, fear, hope, and awe mixing together. For the first time in centuries, truth had cut through the web of lies. And above it all, Celine looked out through the glass walls, her eyes glowing faintly, and whispered to herself, "This is only the beginning." The city did not sleep that night. Screens across the neon towers replayed the moment when the maid revealed herself as Project Seraph. Streets overflowed with voices, some in awe, some in fear, and some in fury. Every world connected to the broadcast now knew the truth. Celine had not destroyed the hall, nor slain her enemies. That choice spoke louder than any explosion. She had revealed power beyond comprehension, and then chosen restraint. For some, this was proof she could be trusted. For others, it was the most dangerous sign of all. Marcus Vale sat in his tower office, staring at the endless data streams pouring in. Public opinion fractured within hours. On one channel, leaders demanded her capture. On another, protesters waved banners calling her a savior. Armies readied. Secret councils met. The galaxy had been thrown into motion, and Ilara? She was gone. Vanished into the night with her alien groom. Rumors whispered that she was gathering allies, spinning the narrative to cast Celine as a threat, a monster cloaked in beauty. Some said she wept. Others claimed she plotted revenge. None knew for certain. Celine herself stood on the balcony of Marcus's tower, gazing at the neon horizon. The night wind stirred her simple gown, and in the glass reflection, her wings shimmered faintly beneath the surface of her skin. She had hidden for so long, silent and obedient, but that time was over. She whispered to the city, though no one could hear, "I am not your weapon. I am not your slave. I am free." But even as she spoke, ships moved in orbit. Scouts tracked her signal. Across the stars, rival powers prepared to act. Some wanted to capture her. Others wanted to worship her. All wanted to use her. Marcus joined her on the balcony, his expression unreadable. "You understand what you've done, don't you? There is no turning back. You've shaken the galaxy awake." Celine nodded, her eyes glowing faintly. "Then let it wake. I will face whatever comes." He studied her quietly, then said, "The truth is out, and with truth comes war. Be ready, Selina, because from this night forward..." He looked out at the storm of lights and ships in the distance. "You are no longer invisible. You are the dawn of Seraph." Far above, the stars pulsed with movement. Fleets shifted, worlds prepared, and history bent. And in the center of it all stood the maid who was not a maid, the weapon who